Welcome to the FanDuel Punch Out podcast. I'll be filling in for Big Italy 42 today as he's a little bit under the weather, and I'm hoping to do more of an Aroldis Chapman relief appearance than a Kevin Gregg one today. So I'll be your host at BChat50, and I'm joined by Spencer, who you can follow on Twitter at Spencer_JL, and we've got the FanDuel goods for you tonight. And on a fun slate, it's fairly big. And as I talked about on the DraftKings podcast with Scott earlier, there's going to be some lineup diversity tonight. You don't have any slam dunk aces like we did yesterday with your Arrietas and your Carrascos and your Harveys. So you're not going to see those huge Harvey ownership numbers tonight. Should make for a fun evening of action. And speaking of pitchers, let's kick it off there. Who do you like tonight, Spencer?
Believe it or not, I'm actually looking kind of down the ladder there at Brandon Morrow of San Diego. I mean, 6.5 over/under. That's lowest total of the day in that pitcher-friendly park against, not really a potent Arizona offense. So I like that spot. He was great in his first outing against San Francisco, and I really like that price tag at 6.6K.
Yeah, and not only is it the lowest betting total of the night, but Morrow's on the favorable side of that as the betting favorite tonight. Love that. Love the pitch FX data that I looked up this morning on him. Fastball's cooking, averaging around 95 miles per hour, according to Brooks Baseball. Kept the ball on the ground, which was something I was curious to see. Has a fly ball, doesn't have a great ground ball rate for his career, but did last year. So I was curious to see how that was going to play, and really kept the ball on the ground against the Giants. Not that you have to at Spacious Petco, but with that wretched outfield defense, not a bad thing to keep the ball on the infield. So I like Morrow. I like the fact that he was inducing some empty swings in that first game. Like the matchup with a bad Arizona offense, as you noted. Ballpark looks great. And the price tag, my goodness, $6,600 allows you to do so much with your hitters tonight. So he's my favorite play. Looking towards the top of the list, I do like Colin McHugh a bit. 8,300. I'll probably roster some shares of him. Offers more strikeout upside, I believe, than Morrow. I mean, Morrow, when he's cooking, does certainly miss bats, but McHugh struck out about a quarter of the batters he faced last year, thanks to really using a breaking ball heavy approach and scrapping his sinker. He really threw the sinker, went to the four-seamer more, saw his fastball velocity up. Another decent total there, so I like McHugh a bit. Those are really the two names that I'm honing in on. In GPPs, I might stick in some shares of really cheap $6,300 Brett Anderson. Kept the ball on the ground in his first start. And the thing that I like most about him is outside of navigating Nelson Cruz in that hot bat against lefties, he's going to take a bite out of Robinson Cano's production as a left-handed batter. Cano much better against righties than lefties. And same can be said for Kyle Seager. So really neutralizes two of the bigger bats in that lineup. So I like Anderson and some GPPs where you're looking to save even more money, another $300 down for Morrow. Betting favorite tonight at home as well. So I like Anderson a little bit, but I'm going to own a ton of shares in Morrow. I'm with you. Any other names that really stand out at pitcher for you?
Yeah, I had those two guys. I had McHugh and Anderson on my list also, but one more GPP option I want to throw out is John Nice at home against Philly. Philly really doesn't have many right-handed bats to give him fits, so I think this is a pretty decent spot for him. He's in a good line to get the win. Doesn't have strikeout upside, but, Philly likes to strike out. So, I mean, there's a GPP option. He's not especially cheap compared to those other options, but, I'll keep him on my tournament radar.
I like that pick as well, and the thing about him is the righties that he does face, Nice doesn't have a huge platoon split anyway, so not a guy that even if they happen to load up with some bench bats or whatever to get more righties in there, not really going to make a huge difference with Nice. And as you noted, their best bats are left-handed, so being able to neutralize Chase Utley's a big deal in a lineup that really lacks a lot of offensive talent. So I like Nice on the tournament radar as well. Let's move on to catcher, and he's the highest priced catcher tonight. I like him a little bit more at DraftKings than here, but I'm going to get some shares of Buster Posey. We've got cheap pitching. We have some options to spend money at other positions, and I think catcher is going to be one of them that I spend on. Posey gets a lefty tonight. Tyler Matzik struggled mightily with right-handed batters last year. Doesn't have the hits in a pitcher-friendly ballpark tonight, so he doesn't have that working for him, but favorable lineup slot, favorable matchup, and mashes lefties. Are you going to be using any Posey tonight?
Yeah, I'll definitely have some shares, like you said. with the cheap pitching, it allows you to spend up on guys like Posey that you normally can't fit in when there's aces on the bump. But, yeah, Posey, elite splits against lefties. You have to like that, even considering the park factor kind of downgrades him a little bit. But still, I mean, I could see him going 2 for 4, 3 for 4, couple doubles, RBIs. I mean, this is a great spot for him. Otherwise, if I'm not going with Posey, I might be looking down to Navarro of Toronto, assuming he's in the lineup. He's been DHing lately. For Toronto, hitting 6th, which is a decent lineup spot. A lot of RBI potential for him behind guys like Encarnacion, Donaldson, Reyes, Batista. And he's going up against Ramirez of Tampa tonight, who really doesn't have impressive splits against lefties in the Rogers Center. So, I mean, that only furthers his cause. And he's only 2.6K on FanDuel. I mean, you have to really like that price tag. So if I'm not going with Posey, I might dip down to Navarro.
I like that call. The ballpark factors are so juicy, and the matchup with Ramirez is great. I mean, it's really hard to argue with that. The only other name that I will throw in there, and this is a tournament home run grab, basically. Brian McCann, $3,400, gets Bud Norris at Camden Yards. Camden Yards enhances home runs to left-handed batters, and Bud Norris is just dreadful against lefties. So really, those are the only 3 names that I'm looking at catcher. What about you? Is that going to wrap it up for catcher for you?
Yeah, I had McCann on my list also for the same reason. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
So we're lock and sync right now. I like that. Let's move on to first base, where while I like Adrian Gonzalez on DraftKings, he's a little pricey for me to use tonight on FanDuel. I'm looking at Anthony Rizzo for $4,300 if you're going pricey. Jason Marquis, the worst pitcher against left-handed batters, sorted by WOBA since 2012. Gotta love Rizzo hitting in the 2-hole against him. Is that your top play at the position too?
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing, word for word, pretty much of what you said. So
nice. Looking down a little bit lower, I mean, if you want to go, again, home run grab and GPPs, Chris Davis, $3,500. Not a bad price point. Basically, you are chasing dingers if you're going with him. Not that I'm much more than an armchair scout, but his swings have looked awful. I mean, I have flashbacks of Josh Hamilton just flailing at pitches aimlessly lately. He looked awful last night. Granted, it was a lefty-lefty matchup, but even the night before, he didn't look particularly good. Not sure what his deal is. Does have a favorable lineup slot and does play in a good ballpark, though. And then Nathan Eovaldi struggles with lefty. So if I'm going to dip a little bit, Chris Davis is probably the guy. The other in tournaments, Lucas Duda is going to be owned probably heavily in cash games at $3,600 with the showdown with Jerome Williams. Like the price tag, Citi Field amplified home runs with its old dimensions, barely, but they did move the center field and right center field fences in. I'd actually expect that the park factor is going to play even more favorably for home runs. Haven't really seen it yet. Did see Daniel Murphy hit a rope of a homer last night that probably would have been a wall banger in Old City Field. Old City Field dimensions of last year. This year ended up clearing the fence and resulting in a round tripper. So I like the ballpark, like the matchup with Williams, but it's $3,600, probably going to be fairly heavily rostered, I would think. What say you?
Yeah, I like that call with Duda. Great matchup. Other than that, in the mid-range category, I'm kind of looking to the KC bats. Eric Hosmore, 3.5K. Kendrys Morales, 3K. I'm a little bit apprehensive with Morales because, I mean, this is just unsustainable what he's been doing. In Kyle Gibson, even though his past 3-year splits aren't exactly very good, I mean, he showed improvement last year. So he's not really a terrible pitcher. I mean, he's not good either by any means. But I still like the Kansas City bats. They're hot for whatever that's worth. But, yeah, I'll probably have 1 or 2 guys from Kansas City on my radar, just kind of picking my spots. I won't load up, but Hosmer and Morales, especially Morales' price point, I don't think that's a bad play.
Not at all. $3,000 is a bargain. And as a left-handed batter, just having dove into Kyle Gibson's stats this offseason is a guy that I like in season-long leagues. I can tell you he strikes out almost no left-handed batters. He does keep the ball on the ground with a sinker, slider, and changeup combination. But when you're not missing bats and you're leaving things to the chance of the vagaries of batted balls, then $3,000 is a pretty good buy for a guy that's going to put the ball in play, basically. You end up with a couple hits, and all of a sudden he pays for himself at $3,000. Moving on to second base, your two top-priced options get lefties tonight, and Ian Kinsler and Jose Altuve. Of the two, give me $4,100 Jose Altuve over Kinsler. When Liriano's on, tough guy to hit for lefties and righties alike. And PNC Park, not good for hitters. So I like Altuve at home at Minute Maid against Pomeranz. Pomeranz isn't particularly good against right-handed batters, and Altuve, save Devin Travis's 7-plate appearance qualifying start to the year, ranks as the top second baseman in WRC plus since 2012 against lefties. Doesn't offer top-shelf power, but does have a little bit of pop. Has elite base running skills and can really steal some bases. But I like the fact that he makes a lot of contact. He's leading off for a right-handed heavy Houston Astros squad at home against Pomeranz. So he's my top play at second base. You agree?
Yeah, I love it. Like you said, he's an excellent candidate for multiple hits against a lefty and multiple stolen bases at that. And Houston has some pretty good run scoring potential with guys like Chris Carter behind him, as we'll probably get into later. Yeah, if I'm paying up, it's Altuve.
Who do you like in the lower price tier range?
I was looking at Neil Walker a little bit, maybe for 3.7K. He ranks high on my projection system, but as a tournament pick, I kind of like Colton Wong at 3.2K. Willie Peralta gives up power to left-handed hitters, and even though Wong doesn't really profile as a power guy, I mean, he does have 2 home run upside, as he showed multiple times last year. So as a tournament pick, if you're trying to catch that upside, I really don't mind Wong in that spot. I think he'll have a lower ownership percentage.
I like the price point on Wong, and as you noted, he can put a charge into the ball. And I mean, this is more anecdotal than statistically backed, but when you get a sinker ball pitcher like Willie Peralta, if you leave a sinker up, that's a ball that is worth hammering. And Colton Wong isn't afraid to turn on one, has good pull side power. So I like Wong. One other cheap name that I will throw out there, let me pull up his price here. $2,600 Ricky Weeks gets a second start at for the Mariners tonight. Still, strangely, second base eligible at FanDuel, even though he's playing the outfield now. Assuming he's in the lineup and hitting leadoff, as I expect him to be, I'll get him on some rosters that I don't own Brett Anderson. He does have the risk of getting pulled late in the game for a pinch hitter if a righty reliever comes in, but he has above-average power for the position, and Dodger Stadium, pretty good for enhancing left-handed home run power. So, again, if you're chasing power, Ricky Weeks is another guy at the position that I think has some GPP appeal.
Yeah, I like that. Just make sure he doesn't have a dentist appointment. As you probably saw in spring training, he wasn't starting in a game because he had a dentist appointment that day. So he kind of took the day off, and personal day of leave, I guess.
Yeah, let me cut this podcast short. I'm going to run to the dentist right now. Take a note from Ricky Weeks. Let's move on to the hot corner, where your pricey option, Matt Carpenter, looks pretty good against Peralta, as we noted with the lefty-righty splits. But I'm looking down a few spots at Evan Longoria for $3,700. Touted him yesterday. Going to tout him again today against the left-handed pitcher. Rogers Center, beautiful ballpark for hitting in. The lefty he faces today is Mark Burley. Not exactly the high-octane arm that he saw in Daniel Norris last night. Burley relies on deception and location, and basically, if he misses with one of those 82 to 85 mile-an-hour fastballs in the zone to Longoria, he's got a good chance to rip a double or find the seats. So I love Evan Longoria tonight. Is he your top play?
So, yeah, we're pretty much 4 for 4 now as far as it goes for top plays on positional analysis. Yeah, Longoria, he just mashes lefties, great park factor. You got to like him here, and you can easily pay up for him, as we said, with the cheap pitching options. So, yeah, I really like him in that spot. Looking down the list,
$100 too, man. Yeah. That's such a good price point for him.
Yeah. Looking down the list, maybe Mike Moustakas in the two hole, 3.1K, and as you said, Gibson, fairly generous against lefties with that high contact rate. I don't mind him there, assuming KC can keep things rolling. I mean, Moustakas will be in the thick of things.
Yep, good lineup spot, good price point, and good matchup. So Moustakas is a nice, I would say a nice tournament play because he's going to be a swerve. You know that Evan Longoria is going to be heavily owned. So if you're looking for that low ownership option, I really like the Mike Moustakas call a lot. And considerably cheaper than your other top third base play, Matt Carpenter, as we know. 4,100 seems a little stiff when you got $3,600 to spend on Longoria, or you can dip down into the value plays with Mike Moustakas. Moving on to shortstop, it's Troy Tulowitzki at the top at $5,000 and no one else in the $4,000 price range. Because of the cheap pitching, I'm actually thinking I'm going to get a couple shares of Troy Tulowitzki. I really think he's going to be very under-owned because he's on the road and facing a right-handed pitcher at AT&T Park, which is very pitcher-friendly. But I love the matchup with Tim Lincecum. Lincecum is in the top 15 for highest WOBA allowed to right-handed batters since 2012. Tulowitzki is still an above-average hitter against right-handed pitchers, is basically by far the top hitter at the position. $5,000 is a lot to roster him, but on a couple of these Morrow and Anderson rosters where I'm not spending much on pitching, I'll probably grab a share or two of Tulowitzki. Not going to own him a ton, but really like the fact that he's probably going to be priced off of some people's radars, and that's what I'm looking for in tournament plays. Guy with high upside that's not going to be heavily owned. Beyond him, going to Jose Reyes, $3,800 against Erasmo Ramirez. He seems like the obvious play. Is that your top play at shortstop?
Yeah, I think he's the safe cash game play for a reasonable price point there. But I really don't disagree with your Tulowitzki rationale there either. Otherwise, looking down the list, there really isn't many options that I see at shortstop today. Maybe Alcides Escobar of KC leading off, but I don't know. That's just a maybe. I'd rather play it safe with Reyes personally, but he's another option that's on the list, I guess.
Same here. The last name that I'll throw in there is completely dependent on lineup tonight. Jed Lowry moved up to the 3-hole last night. If he's hitting third again tonight, $3,000, good price point for him at Minute Maid Park against the lefty. As a switch hitter, he's going to get the platoon advantage, but that's really dependent on lineup spot. If they move Chris Carter back up into the top 5 spots in the order, which I expect, you could see Lowry drop a little bit lower in the order. If Lowry's hitting in any of the top 3 spots, which he won't hit leadoff with Altuve there, but if he's hitting second or third again tonight, I like Lowry at $3,000. If he drops, say, to 6th in the lineup, like him a little bit less.
Yeah, I think Lowry has more home runs this season than he did all of last year with 2 already. But I mean, he's not known as a power hitter, but that park shift in Houston really kind of helps him out. So yeah, that's a good call. I like that.
No, and oddly enough, well, maybe not oddly considering the ballpark, but his best home run season did come when he was an Astro just a couple years ago. So I think there might be something to that. But let's move on to the outfield, which is deep as always. Lots of options. Who's your top player or a couple of your top plays at the position tonight?
Per dollar, I think Steve Souza is one of the better picks. He's got that righty-lefty matchup. I was pretty heavy on him last night, and it paid off. He hit like a 460-some foot home run. I wish you could get bonus points for length. That'd be really cool. But no, he went 3 for 5, home run, RBI, stole a base, two runs, and I don't think this is really chasing points there because he's got the righty-lefty split again, reasonable price point, hitter-friendly park. I really like him.
Really hit in the upper minors, too. I do expect him to figure it out, and maybe last night was the start of that. Had a couple shares of him myself last night. Wish I had a few more shares of him, but I like the price point, as you pointed out, and I like him quite a bit. Going down the list or looking elsewhere on the list, I like Curtis Granderson a little bit again. Really want to get some exposure to Jerome Williams. At $2,900, Granderson, the leadoff hitter for the Mets, pretty good cheap option to get some action against Jerome Williams. And again, playing at Citi Field with the new dimensions, like the fact that should enhance some power there for those left-handed bats. And he's a guy that I like a bit tonight.
Yeah. On top of that, Jacoby Ellsbury, 4.1K.
Yes.
Against Bud Norris, that he's pretty susceptible against lefties. I really like that call for some power speed combination there. Other than that, maybe Jason Hayward. He hasn't really been good lately, but he's sitting in the 2-hole, I believe. Is that right? Has he been?
I'm sorry. Yes, he has. Yes, right behind Carpenter and in front of Matt Holliday. You're correct.
Yeah, against Peralta, I think he has some home run upside there, and not many people will be on him because they'll probably look at the game log and be like, this guy, he's cold right now. But I think this is a great spot for a breakout. On top of that, Lorenzo Cain, as we mentioned with Kansas City, Doesn't have the platoon advantage, but he's still a decent option, 3.6K. Hitting in the heart of that KC lineup, he could have some RBI potential, as we've seen the past few games.
Yeah, I agree. I'll go back to Baltimore for another pick. I like Travis Snyder of the Orioles. I want to get some exposure with left-handed bats against Nathan Eovaldi. Eovaldi pretty bad against left-handed batters. Just doesn't have that pitch to really neutralize them. Snyder has above-average power. As I cited in the podcast earlier, the DraftKings Daily Trot, Snyder ranked 9th last year in average home run and fly ball distance per baseball heat map. So the raw power's there. I don't like the fact that he's been dropped to 5th in the order with the move up for Chris Davis, but at $3,100, I like him as a multiple home run threat at Camden Yards. And I'll go back to the Tampa Bay Rays outfield again. Brandon Guyer and Desmond Jennings both get the better of left-handed pitchers. Both are priced fairly cheap. So
Guyer's really cheap.
Guyer's
like
exceptionally cheap.
Yeah.
And he's a leadoff hitter, and you got to love that. I mean, any chance you're going to get those extra at-bats against a lefty like Burley at the Rogers Center, you got to be a fan of that. So I think we're on the same page there, correct?
Yeah. One more guy, speaking back to your Baltimore point, Alejandro De Aza hitting the leadoff. He's shown some decent power upside this year. And I made an early FanDuel lineup, or I guess a preliminary FanDuel lineup for the later slate, and De Aza's in it, and I really like him tonight.
I like the De Aza play as well. Let's get that price point up here. We've got him at $3,100, so good price for him. I like De Aza. Good, again, another leadoff hitter. Lineup slot so important. The more exposure you can get in games to extra plate appearances, the more chances you have of scoring. So we love some leadoff hitters with some power speed combo, and the outfield looks pretty deep tonight. Price points look good at pitchers, so you're going to have some options to really load up on hitters. And I think it's going to be a fun night on FanDuel. I think you're going to see some very diverse lineups near the top. I don't think you're going to see a lot of the same players necessarily carrying teams, because I think we've got a few hitters that can really put up some big nights and kind of keep things interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a fun ride with all these number 3, number 4 pitchers going out. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
So, all right, with that, I want to wish everybody watching good luck. We have, hopefully we've highlighted some great plays to help you win some money tonight. I definitely love the plays that Spencer had, where, as you saw, we are lock sync on a lot of the same players. And I think you're going to see our names near the top of the leaderboard. Join us and win some cash here on FanDuel tonight. Good luck to everybody. Thanks for joining me, Spencer. And take care, everybody.